Hey everybody, I'm John at Collect Cards. It's Saturday, July 22nd. We are mere hours away from the 2023 National Sports Card Convention in Chicago. It'll be my first one. Getting really excited for it. Hoping to, just see some really interesting cards and great cards you never really see anywhere else, even maybe. Some great memorabilia, and also really looking forward to meeting a lot of you if you're going to be there. Hope to cross paths along the way. I'll be there from Thursday through Saturday next week. But with I wanted to get right to the subject of this video, and that is a VR for Double D Vintage Cards. Dylan, I wanted to take your opportunity to share a few cards that just go together or could go together, and so kind of scratched my head a bit, gave it some thought, came up with 7 possibilities that kind of I think could work, and so I'm going to turn the camera around here and get it underway. Okay, hang on just a sec. All right. So again, we're going to show 7 sets of cards that I think you could make a case for going together if you wanted to display them together. I think the in most of these cases it would be fairly obvious the reason why they're put together. A couple might be a little more would need to do a little bit digging to just sort of get why, but maybe 2 of those actually. But let's get it started with a classic trio that if you grew up in the, if you were a child of the 80s, which I was, there was a particular tune that was very overplayed, I think, over time, and probably even still is at ballparks. But, it's just, when you hear it, you think maybe when you were a kid, which was kind of the point of the song to begin with. And that would be, for the maybe even the grown-ups who heard it back in the 80s, who remembered this particular era. And so, of course, I'm talking about Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. So I think these, this trio is, without saying, always going to be linked together in some way. And so these are, examples of, a Willie Mays card from 1954 Topps. Same with Duke Snider from 1954 Topps. He's actually one of my probably half a dozen or so Hall of Famers from that set that I still would like to get graded, and I don't have graded yet. Got about a dozen of them graded, I believe, in terms of the Hall of Famers. And this one will probably go out in the next couple of months. And then Mickey, this is the first Mickey Mantle I purchased. I only have 2 Playing Days Mickeys. Playing Day Mantles, and this one's a very poor one from 1957, but because it was my first mantle, I really do like having it, so wanted to show that right there. Next up, I want to share here are a pair of autographs that I've actually shared 1 or 2 other times, but they're very special for me, and they also make sense to have kind of going together, and that's these 2 autographs right here. From 1961 Topps, I got both Bill Mazeroski and Bobby Richardson autographed by each player through the mail. Bobby's was actually no charge, which was fantastic, and Bill Mazeroski, I believe, was $10. Just they look great, and I love having these together. And I actually do have them together in my stash of TTMs, but. I really like how they both reference their moments in the 1960 World Series. Referencing Mazeroski's homer that won it all. Bobby Richardson's for what he did in the series. He had like 12 RBIs, I think, in the series. Yeah, which is pretty nuts, especially for a losing effort. He was named World Series MVP. So for me, these 2 will always go together, autographed or not. So I thought that was an interesting one to share. Next one I'm going to share is a triplicate again. This one will actually include a modern card, or an ultra modern even, if you can call it. But first I'm going to share these 2 here. A 1966 Willie Mays, a 1967 Hank Aaron. But then I'm also going to throw in this card right here. This is a Miguel Cabrera, the 2021 Topps Chrome Black, numbered to 50. Actually, And the reason why I think it's important to share these three together is that they just hold I think, a pretty amazing distinction. They're the only three players in Major League history to have a lifetime batting average above 300. They have 3,000 hits or more and 500 home runs or more. You're looking at them, just these three, and that is pretty incredible. With Cabrera getting hit number 3,000 in 2022 and hitting his 500th home run in 2021. So just a really exclusive club right there. It doesn't get much more exclusive than that. So I think that's a cool grouping to share there. Albert Pujols very well could have joined this group, but he fell, and in the end, he fell just under 300 for his batting average. I think he was like 297 or 298. And Miggy is still at like 307, I think. And he actually has the highest batting average of the three. Mays finished at 301 and Aaron at 305. But really, really cool club there. Got four more I'm going to share here real quick. You want some small ball? I like small ball once in a while, actually, not just the home run. And so I think this is actually a really cool threesome to share here. How about this? All from 1959, White Sox, Go-Go Sox AL pennant winning year. Nellie Fox, Luis Aparicio, and what do you know? They had a combo card together that year too. So I think that's actually a really cool pairing plus one to have kind of on display there, especially if you're a White Sox fan. This is a really cool grouping, I think, actually, to share here, just, of Hall of Famers. I think that's a really cool triplicate there. I'm going to show a couple more, three more. Let's go 1960s here from probably the greatest, or arguably the greatest left-handed pitcher and starting pitcher in Major League history, Sandy Koufax. I'm not saying that's definitive, but given the short span of his career, but it's likely. These two right here. I chose these two, 1961 tops and 1966 tops. 66 is his last playing era card. He retired after the 66 season because of arthritis in his left arm. I think it was mostly arthritis. Could have been some other stuff up with it in his arm. But I chose 61 because this is sort of a bookend of his dominant era. He either led the league in strikeouts, ERA, or wins. Starting in 1961, he led in at least one of those categories each year in those 6 years. And so I'm almost certain that's right. I know in 61 he led the league in strikeouts. And that kind of got, really his era of dominance going in earnest. And so I think these two cards together are kind of a cool bookend to share together, these two Sandys. So we got those. And two more I'm going to share. Both involve the New York Yankees, which is my favorite team. First, I'm going to share I already shared a kind of a losing note from a World Series in 1960. I'm going to share kind of another scenario where they kind of came on the downside against this guy. So George Brett was, growing up for me, he was the all-time Yankee killer. He just loved performing against the Yankees, and especially in the big moments, hurting the Yankees. He had some incredibly memorable home runs against them. And two of them were off of this guy, Rich Goose Gossage, who I really don't have a vintage card handy, actually, of him with the Yankees. So I pulled out this one, which he did auto for me and inscribed, which was really cool, from 2020 Allen and Ginter. This is actually a Hotbox foil variation, too. So it's just a pretty sweet card of him. But this is the 1980 Brett, from when the Royals' his first American League pennant, when they finally beat the Yankees in their fourth try in the American League Championship Series. He also hit 390 that year in 1980. So in 1980's LCS, ended up being a 3-game sweep of the Yankees, and I believe in the 7th or 8th inning, he hit a towering 2-run homer off of the Goose. to give the Royals the lead, and which I don't believe they relinquished and ended up sweeping the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. Was Game 3. They took the first two in Kansas City, and then of course the 3 years later, the Goose served up another one to George Brett. That for a while maybe it wasn't going to be a home run, but it ended up being a home run. Of course, I'm talking about the Pine Tar game in 1983. Brett homered again off of Gossage there in that game, regular season game, and one of the most interesting kind of sagas that in the end was really not monumental and sort of anticlimactic, but given that they were the Royals protested, and it's probably the only protest that has ever went through, and the protesting team prevailed in the protest that I can remember, which probably in the end was for the best. Billy Martin pulled one of his rabbits out of his hat, and tried to pull the old pine tar trick in terms of saying it was too far up the bat, and maybe it was, but it's like, who calls that stuff? Who enforces that stuff in the end? But I guess it needs to be enforced, but in the end, it is what it is. The homer counted, and even before these two got together, I mean, Brett has homered. He had so many big homers against the Yankees. He had a 3-home run game in the 1978 ALCS Game 3, I believe, which the Yankees actually ended up winning on a Thurman Munson home run in the bottom of the 8th. But Brett had 3 homers in that game. And then in 1976's ALCS Game 5, he had a big home run, 3-run homer that tied the game in like the 6th or 7th inning off of Grant Jackson. So, I mean, he's just, that was really his first big national stage shining moments when he hit that tying home run in 76. Just, he had so many big moments against the Yankees. So, he's sort of one of those guys you just sort of like, you acknowledge his greatness. Last pairing I'm going to go back. Actually, it's a triplicate, and I'm going to go back a few decades here to the 1950s. And this is the one that requires a little bit of explanation, and then we'll call it a wrap. 1952, Topps Gil Hodges. Got him a 4.5 year. I really enjoy having this card. I've had it for about a year and a half now. And we've got Allie Reynolds, big-time Yankee starting pitcher in the late 40s, early 50s. These are all from 1952 Topps. The other one is Bob Cazava. So the reason I have these three together is because, so let's see, 1952 World Series, all 1952 Topps. 52 World Series, Yankees beat the Dodgers in 7 games. The biggest play kind of historically that is remembered from that series was, I believe it was bottom of the 7th inning. I believe Game 7 was at Ebbets Field that year. Jackie Robinson Jackie Robinson hit a pop-up with the bases loaded that Billy Martin came in and made a catch on that, like, nobody thought anybody was going to get to it, even though it was right in the middle of the infield. It was like hitting like just the right spot or wrong spot for the Yankees, but Martin kind of raced in, made a big catch, kept the Yankees in the lead, and ended a bases loaded situation, and the Yankees went on to win. So basically what I was going to say here, so Allie Reynolds ended up being, I believe, was the winning pitcher in that Game 7. He came in relief actually in that game and pitched 3 innings and won, I believe it was his second game of that series. And then Bob Cazava ended up closing out that game, and I believe he closed it out. I looked this up a few days ago. I should have jotted down the stats, but I'm pretty sure I have it right. Cazava pitched like 2+ innings of relief in that game, and it was his only appearance in the series, but I think he closed it out. And I can't remember if he was on the mound when that pop-up came that Robinson hit. He may have been the pitcher for that one. I think Reynolds was out of the game already. But the reason I'm showing Hodges here is because Hodges went 0 for 21 in that World Series. And he's sort of known in some ways for really struggling in that particular series. And then even in the following season, 1953, he got off to apparently a really slow start. And the Dodgers were so beloved in Brooklyn that there's in baseball lore, there's apparently was a Brooklyn church service on a Sunday, and the priest told everybody to just go home today and just say a prayer for Gil Hodges. And, wouldn't you know it, days later he got on like a tear and had a huge hot streak, and he was back on track for probably the rest of his career. Which, he would have slugged his way out of it anyway, but it's just kind of a fun little story there. But so these three sort of had a role in the 1952 World Series, in Game 7 in particular, but just in a way, his Gil suffered through some futility in that series, and it probably cost the Dodgers as well. But there you have it. I just wanted to share. This one was a little more cryptic, but I thought it would be kind of a cool little story to sort of talk about. Especially, and these are just cool cards. I love the color background on the Cassava. I think it's really cool. And Allie Reynolds is sort of an unsung starting pitching hero in those golden era years for the Yankees. I think he's been on some like Veterans Committee Hall of Fame ballots over the years. He just doesn't get enough votes to get in, but he had a really solid career. And Gil's just classic card of his there from 52 Topps. So there you have it. I'll just end with these on the screen. 7 cards, or 7 sets of cards that maybe just could go together, or at least you can make the case that is to do so. So Dylan, thanks for the chance here for me to do what I really like, is to talk about baseball cards and maybe some stories behind them. And so that's that. I might have one more video to do before the National. I'm actually thinking about bringing some cards to give to SGC to take with them to grade. So if I end up getting those in set up, I might share those in a quick video in terms of what I'm going to take with me to give to them. So that'll do it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on the next video.